it looks bad to you, how do you think it looks to him? Please help put an end to the violence.
1 in 4 American women have been abused by an intimate partner or ex-partner.
Domestic violence, also known as intimate partner violence, is defined as verbal abuse or threats, any kind of physical abuse, and sexual abuse, such as rape from an intimate partner, ex-partner, or a family member.
Abuse takes on many forms. These types include physical, such as hitting, choking, use of weapons, shoving, restraining, and burning. Sexual, such as unwanted sexual contact, harassing her for sex, pressuring her to pose for explicit pictures. Financial, such as taking the woman's money, not allowing access to family income, keeping finances a secret, and controlling all access to money. Emotional and verbal, such as overpowering the victim's emotions, degrading the victim, humiliating her, threats, blaming the victim for everything, withholding affection, inappropriate jealousy, controlling who she talks to and where she goes, what she wears, name-calling, put-downs, and insults. It is important to know that no single type of abuse is worse than another. Any form can affect both women and children who experience the abuse. Most often, when there is one form of abuse occurring in the home, there are other forms of abuse present that may be unidentified by the woman or undisclosed due to shame.
No society is immune from domestic violence. New immigrants may be more at risk of staying in an abusive relationship as they may not be aware of the rights and the laws that are in place to protect them. In America, Japanese women have the highest prevalence of physical, emotional, and sexual abuse. In North America, 37% of women were abused physically, 20% were abused sexually, and 30% were abused emotionally.
Abuse can occur across any socioeconomic class, race, religion, ability, and sexual orientation. Some groups may be more vulnerable to experiencing abuse. Women living in poverty may be more likely to stay in an abusive relationship as they do not have accessible financial resources and they may be financially dependent on the abuser. Also, women living in rural communities may not be able to easily flee the abuse due to lack of community resources or transportation.
The most common risk factors for domestic violence include the level of education of the victim and the abuser, whether the victim or the abuser has been pre-exposed to domestic violence as a child, whether or not the woman's views support her partner's violent actions, if the victim or abuser has a problem with drugs and/or alcohol, if the victim experienced abuse after the age of 15 by someone other than an intimate partner, if the woman has children from past relationships, if their partner has cheated with other women, if the woman is living with her partner, and if they are in a polygamous relationship. Tell yourself it's never gonna happen again. You cry alone and then he swears he loves you. Do you feel like a man when you push her around? Do you feel better now as she falls to the ground?
There are many negative effects of being in an abusive relationship. Some of these include poor health, low self-identity, post-traumatic stress disorder, a stressful existence, low self-esteem and self-worth, severe injuries such as hospitalization, dental work, and loss of hearing and death. There are various options for women seeking assistance in leaving an abusive relationship. Contacting a women's shelter or crisis line can be a good start. These services can help direct women to various resources that will meet the individual's needs. We can also assist women in making detailed safety plans unique to their situation. A safety plan outlines various steps that a woman can take to decrease her risk of danger. Speak to your doctor. It is safe to do so. If a person is in immediate danger, she should contact the police or call 911. There is a National Women Abuse Helpline both in Canada and the United States. They will provide you with a list of violence against women shelters and/or community-based agencies, such as victim services, legal issues, child protective services, housing options, safety plans, and much more.
How old were you when you witnessed domestic violence, and how often?
I witnessed my mother being abused from between 4 and 8, and it happened every day.
Domestic violence is defined as physical, emotional, and sexual abuse by a partner or ex-partner. What type of domestic violence were you a witness to?
It was physical abuse, a lot of kicking and punching, And later my mom told me it was emotional as well.
Did witnessing domestic violence as a child affect you in school or with friends at the time?
Well, in school I did get poor grades, but I'm not sure if it was because of the abuse. But I didn't want to bring friends over because he would be screaming and yelling at my mom, and it was embarrassing.
Did your mother ever attempt to leave her abusive boyfriend? Were authorities ever called when violence did occur?
Yes, she did try leaving a few times, but she always went back. She finally left when she found a place to go. But the neighbors always called the cops, and the cops said that they couldn't do anything unless she pressed the charges, and she didn't want to press charges.
Why do you think she always went back to him?
She never had the money to leave. She never went to college, so she couldn't get a job, she couldn't pay for childcare, so she needed him to pay the rent because she had 4 kids.
Education and poverty level are actually both risk factors for domestic violence. Do you feel they played a role?
Yes, definitely. If she went to college, she could have found a job and she wouldn't have to rely on the guy financially. He knew that she needed a place to stay, so he could hit her, and she would have no place to go, she'd have to stay.
How did it feel to see your mother go back to her abuser?
It was frustrating. I was sick and tired of seeing her beaten and thrown into walls. My mother blames that it was just because of the money, but I feel like it was because she didn't want to be alone. She'd rather be in a horrible relationship and be with just to have a husband or a boyfriend.
One more question. Domestic violence has only recently been seen as a global crisis. Do you think this should have been the case much earlier than that?
Yes, I consider my mother one of the lucky ones. I hear stories all the time about husbands murdering their wives, and I feel like it happens more than we know. Women shouldn't have to live in fear. It's sad.
Until I met Susan Still, I thought I had seen and heard it all. I want you to know this is real reality TV. Her 13-year-old son is filming this video you're about to see on orders from his father.
You play those stupid games with me, I'll knock your teeth out of your face. You hear me?
It's the nightmare we hear happens behind closed doors, but rarely, if ever, see.
You keep playing this game with me, I'm gonna knock your head across that wall.
In a rage, Susan Still's husband, emotionally and verbally, attacks her in front of their children. With her oldest son, 13, on the other side of the lens, and her 8-year-old son also in the room, Susan's husband calls her stupid 23 times, heifer 28 times, among other dehumanizing names.
That's what you are. Total.
I don't need to be stupid. I don't need to act stupid. I don't want to act stupid. I don't, and I'm sorry.
The abuse then turns from words and threats to fists and an explosion of violence.
It's still hard for me to watch after all this time. And I cannot watch that video without thinking what's going to happen to those 2 boys. I just wonder if there's enough therapy in the world for those 2 boys when you not only have witnessed that happen to your mother on a almost daily basis and sometimes several times a day, but you were the person who filmed it, who was forced to partake in it. So that's what I was thinking then, and that's what I continue to think now. I just, for every woman who's ever thought that I'm staying because I want to make it okay for my children, the damage to your children, emotionally and spiritually, even though your children may never get hit, the damage to them doesn't even begin to compare to whatever your emotional or physical damage is, because you just can't undo it. It cannot be undone.